No CP, as the eldest senior sister of Xuantian Sect, Wang Xianshu, who emerged from the Cold World, was defeated by the joint efforts of her younger junior sister and fiancé AE on the Black Wind Cliff. Her cultivation was completely destroyed, and her life was destroyed. After waking up, she found herself reborn. When the junior sister first came to the sect, she was born beautiful and charming. The disciples of the sect and the man who had an engagement with her all had a good impression of her. She thought she would be unwilling, but she just glanced and left. Perhaps it was the experience in her past life that made her realize her true intention. What is a man? She requested the immortal to ask for the ultimate path to immortality. She wants to be free and carefree in this world, the vastness of heaven and earth. Why stop making progress for men? Later, the junior sister rebelled and Xuantian Sect fell into a crisis. Wang Xianshu stood up and saved the sect from water and fire. But it was discovered that the junior sister was not only involved with her fiancé, but also colluded with the demon realm, intending to destroy the entire continent. Little junior sister is just building a foundation and cultivating skills. How could she have such great abilities? Wang Xianshu requested the sect leader to go down the mountain and personally capture the junior sister. She learned a shocking secret from the junior sister. It turned out that the world they were in was just a world from a novel, in which Wang Xianshu was a vicious supporting actress. And her junior sister is the female lead appointed by the system, with good luck, destined to step on them. Another serious thing is that the world of novels is about to collapse. Once the world of novels collapses, all living beings in this world will inevitably die. Everyone. Senior sister, it's all up to you. Keywords of the novel. My senior sister really exploded without a pop-up window, my senior sister really exploded with a complete download of TXT, and my senior sister really exploded with the latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. The True Face of Junior Sister. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The True Face of Junior Sister. Tianxian Continent. Black Wind Cliff. At this moment, a woman covered in blood stood on the Black Wind Cliff, and the weathering blowing from the bottom of the cliff made a wind blade, cutting her body and adding several more scars. The woman remained extremely calm, with no hint of panic in her eyes. She stared closely at a man and a woman in front of her. The woman was the most favored junior sister of the Xuantian Sect, and the man was her second senior brother who had been engaged to the secular royal court. They were selected together and left the dynasty to enter the Xuantian Sect to devote themselves to cultivation. She could never have imagined that it was these two people who were going to kill her. Even if Wang Xianshu remained calm, she couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood at this moment. Why? Junior sister, I treat you like my own sister. Why do you do this? Wang Xianshu struggled weakly and asked. Why? The little junior sister was seductively entangled around Mo Ziyuan. When she first came to the sect, she was dressed in cloth and looked like a little beggar. No one in the sect wanted to talk to her, but it was her Wang Xianshu who sent her the clothing of the sect disciples. During the internal entrance exam, it was also Wang Xianshu who worked tirelessly to teach her. Even though her qualifications were even worse than others, she gave her enough patience. It's hard for Wang Xianshu to imagine that her little sister, who has been carefully taught by her, would suddenly switch sides to frame herself. In this downhill trial, the three of them walked together, and Wang Xianshu unexpectedly opened a secret realm to obtain the precious Cangming divine map. I thought I would return to the sect soon and bring good news to them. Unexpectedly, when passing over the Black Wind Cliff, the two of them showed their murderous intent towards her. My junior sister only builds a foundation and is not afraid, but Mo Ziyuan is a solid cultivator of the golden core. Although Wang Xianshu has exceptional talent, she is only 3 years younger than Mo Ziyuan, and is only one step away from the golden core. The two of them pressed closely step by step, eventually forcing Wang Xianshu to the edge of the cliff. Senior sister, this is the last time I call you, senior sister. If you are willing to hand over the Cangming divine map, I am willing to leave you a whole corpse. The little junior sister grew louder step by step and came to Wang Xianshu. Looking at the disheveled appearance of the old senior sister who used to dominate, the little junior sister was really happy in her heart. Mosey Yuan held his sword and grabbed the weak and boneless waist of the young junior sister with one hand. Why bother talking to her? Kill her, and the Cangming divine map will naturally appear. After speaking, with one sword, it will take Wang Xianshu's life directly. Wang Xianshu's eyes were bloodshot, and in the scene of the judges leaving, her brain was running rapidly. When the sword aura enveloped the murderous aura, her body turned to the side, and the tremendous impact on the blade made her already shaky body uncontrollably fall down the cliff. She was already at the end of her strong crossbow, unable to stand firm. She crushed a stone under her feet and collapsed in a tilted position. Wang Xianshu saw the panicked expression on the little junior sister's face for the last time, just like the expression she showed when she first came to the sect. But at this moment, Wang Xianshu knew that the junior sister had never treated her like a sister, and she had always been using herself. As for Mosey Yuan, it's just that the Wang family and the Mo family are close friends. It was only in order to establish a friendship between Qin and Jin that this marriage was decided. If Mosey Yuan is unwilling, there is no need to force it. How can one live for a man in this world? If there is an afterlife, one must devote oneself to cultivation and break through the path of immortality. Wang Xianshu's body kept falling, and her white clothes had already been dyed red with blood. She finally looked at the hazy sky with nostalgia and reluctance. Thinking of the distant family members of the Dian dynasty, I can only reluctantly close my eyes. Senior sister, senior sister. Who? Who is talking? The door was quickly knocked on, and the shouting outside alarmed the sleeping people inside. Before the person on the bed could wake up, the person outside had already pushed open the door on their own and arrived at the bedside. Senior sister, the sect trial is almost starting. Why are you still sleeping? This voice is so familiar. The person on the bed tried hard to open their eyes and saw a familiar person at a glance. Lan Kai. This person is Wang Xianshu, and at this moment she shouted out as if she had seen a ghost. Wearing a blue robe in front of her, Lan Kai, who had a cute appearance, was stunned for a moment. She had no idea why the senior sister had such a big reaction. Not to mention that her senior sister had walked outside the ghost gate and then returned. What's going on? Didn't I fall off the black wind cliff and die? Wang Xianshu looked at her hand in disbelief, without any injuries, still dressed neatly and sleeping inside the room, which was also her only room in the Xuantian Sect. Has she been reborn? After confirming this idea, Wang Xianshu's face was filled with excitement, which seemed particularly strange to Lan Kai today. But even if the senior sister is strange, she is still her senior sister. So, Lan Kai took out a box of pastries from her storage bag. As she was eating the pastries, her eyes narrowed instantly, like a feeding animal. Wang Xianshu suddenly remembered Lan Kai's words earlier and asked, Kai, did you just say today is the day of the sex trial? Lan Kai completely doesn't understand where senior sister is getting excited. Is there anyone in the entire Xuantian sect who can compete with senior sister? Yeah, today is the day for the trial, but senior sister, you don't have to worry so much. You will definitely get through it. Lan Kai looked at the senior sister who was busy dressing and comforted her. Let's go. Dressed neatly, Wang Xianshu wielded a sword and flew out of this small Cheong peak with Lan Kai, heading straight towards the main hall. Today is the day of trial, and it is also the moment and the young junior sister Xianyin entered the inner gate. The last time she was there to guide her, she was able to enter the inner gate with the strength of the third layer of qi refining and worship Elder Shinshao as her teacher. This time, she was very curious. Without her help, the junior sister could still smoothly enter the inner gate. Senior sister, fly slowly, my face hurts. Lan Kai-yi complained that even though she was the daughter of the sect leader, she never practiced and only coveted the delicious food in the world. Every time she went to the world, she would eat all the delicious food in the world. As a result, the current strength is only limited to the 4th level of gas refining, and one has not yet learned how to fly with a sword. Remembering the last time I went to search for treasure in a secret realm, I accidentally lost Lan Kai-yi. I originally wanted to return to the sect as soon as possible and request the sect leader to take action, but unexpectedly, I was caught by the black hands of Xianyin and Mosey Yuan along the way, and even she was buried on the Black Wind Cliff. I wonder if Lan Kai-yi returned to the sect later. I don't know how Xianyin and the others will explain their disappearance. However, Wang Xianshu could no longer know about all of this. Wang Xianshu slowed down the speed and the wind became much smaller. The two of them could see from a distance that the main hall was filled with people, and she saw the fairy sound like a little white rabbit in the crowd at a glance. The flying sword suddenly stopped at a distance of half a meter from the ground, and Lan Kai-yi jumped down from above. She loosened her muscles and said, "I've calculated it, but the flying sword is still not as easy to sit on as the flying boat." Wang Xianshu remained silent and put away her sword. She has a cold nature and is not good at dealing with outsiders, so disciples of Xuantian Sect avoid her when they see her. Only the daughter of the sect leader, Lan Kai-yi, was not afraid of her at all. Oh, there's another person who's not afraid of her. Wang Xianshu's gaze fell down. The once shining junior sister was still dressed in a refugee outfit, dressed in coarse linen clothes, and her face was covered in dirt and grime from unknown objects. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Can you still win this time? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Can you still win this time? As she saw Wang Xianshu looking towards her, Xianyin became excited. Look, her support is coming. Xianyin looked at the man who had just wanted to belittle her with a disdainful expression, and then ran happily to Wang Xianshu. Senior sister. But because she only worked as a laborer in the outer gate for a year, the outer gate disciples were not allowed to have any contact with the inner gate disciples, so she could only stand at the foot of the steps and look up at the unattainable figure. At the same time, a wave of jealousy and resentment welled up in her heart. Why? Why is it that Wang Xianshu can stand tall and enjoy the worship of others, while her fairy voice, the destined son, can only stand below the stage and associate with a group of hooligans and bandits? One day, she will replace Wang Xianshu. The emotions in her eyes were fleeting, but she was still caught by Wang Xianshu. Wang Xianshu only hated being blinded by her good junior sister in the previous life and didn't realize that she had always wanted to replace her. Without responding to her immediately, she turned around and walked towards her position. The palm of Xianyin's behind was almost torn open. She lowered her head, hiding her expression of resentment. What's going on? Why did Wang Xianshu suddenly become so indifferent? Before she even believed in herself, who was causing trouble? Xianyin saw Lan Kai-yi following Wang Xianshu at a glance, and her heart turned to understand. Lan Kai-yi has never dealt with her. With her by Wang Xianshu's side, it's strange that Wang Xianshu has a good attitude towards her. However, don't worry, she is the protagonist of this world, and one day she will have to clean up all these people. Xianyin walked to her position, and soon the sect trial was about to begin. She had full confidence that she could enter the inner gate. At that time, any Wang Xianshu or Lan Kai-yi would be fake, and she would be the only senior sister of the Xuantian Sect. Senior sister, do you know that person just now? This woman has some ulterior motives. Senior sister, please don't be fooled by her. Lan Kai-yi said with concern. Wang Xianshu's heart warmed and she replied, no way. I won't do it this time. Wang Xianshu thought to herself. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd, and everyone looked in one direction together. I saw a row of people wearing black robes walking from a distance, led by a handsome and extraordinary person. With just one meeting, the new female cultivator was mesmerized. "Look, that's Mozun, the senior brother of Daqiangfeng. He's really handsome. Unfortunately, he is already engaged to Xiao Qiongfeng's senior sister. No one in the entire Xuantian Sect knows that Mozun and Wang Xianshu are a pair made in heaven and earth. They came from the secular dynasty to the cultivation world together. In their era, all the glory belonged to them. Even some disciples from other sects were suppressed and couldn't lift their heads. Moreover, the two of them have been engaged since then. However, senior sister Xiaoqiangfeng's personality is too solitary and arrogant, so no one dares to verify it in person." Mozun. "Senior sister, how could you have an engagement with someone like that?" Lan Kai narrowed her round eyes, she rarely had such a dangerous and alert expression. Wang Xianshu was somewhat surprised, "What's wrong with him?" At a glance, Mozun saw Wang Xianshu on the high platform, who was as cold and dusty as a fairy. However, he quickly averted his gaze and landed on the little white rabbit female protagonist Xianyin. At this moment, the sound of the system echoed in Xianyin's mind. The male lead's favorability has increased by 5, with a current favorability of 35. We hope the host can continue to work hard and conquer the male lead as soon as possible. Yes, the system. Xianyin met the male lead's gaze without blinking or avoiding, which made the male lead appreciate her a little more. She has traveled from the 21st century, and this world is just a world of novels by Wang Xianshu. The male protagonist is Mozun, and the story revolves around Mozun. From his time in the secular dynasty to the cultivation world, countless geniuses and treasures rushed towards him, and countless highly cultivated female cultivators embraced her. And the fairy Wang Xianshu, who thought she was cold and ethereal, couldn't escape the charm of the male protagonist Wang Xianshu. In the end, she used her body to block the male protagonist's calamity and died. The original owner was just a beggar on the roadside, a presence that was even more cannon fodder. Once a monster entered the village, it easily tore her apart. But this time it's different. She is the female protagonist selected by the system, and this time she must conquer the male protagonist Wang Xianshu and reach the peak of the cultivation world. Xianyin confidently looked up, her ordinary face shining brightly in the sunlight, making people unable to move their eyes. Mozun unconsciously glanced twice before reluctantly returning to his position. Mozun is a playboy, he's hooked on everyone. Upon seeing Mozun approaching, Lan Kai immediately approached the senior sister with disdain. Their seats are strictly arranged according to their cultivation level and seniority. A group of junior brothers are in the lower position, the leader is in the upper position, the leader of a peak is under the leader, and their favorite disciples are under the leader. Mozun, as the senior brother of Daqiangfeng, is on an equal footing with them. However, just as he had just taken his seat, the beauty of Elder Panyu couldn't help but fall on him. Judging from his expression, Mozun seemed to have not noticed the favor of the first beauty elder of Xuantian Sect towards him. Wang Xianshu has some enlightenment. In her previous life, she only focused on the hard cultivation of Xiaoqiangfeng, but ignored the significant transformation that had occurred in her fiancé who came to cultivate with her unconsciously. In recent years, his reputation has been growing, and the recent battle of forming pills has moved the entire cultivation world. But no matter how talented and powerful he is, he will ultimately only be an ordinary person from the secular world. Are these large children convinced by him by everyone? Even if one's personal strength is against the sky, it is still terrifyingly weak in front of major storefronts. Wang Xianshu was able to re-examine this person due to Lan Kai's words, and at the same time, she also vaguely felt the loosening of the bottleneck. She has been stuck in the foundation building circle for 3 years, and perhaps the opportunity for breakthrough will soon come. At this moment, the steward next to the leader took a step forward after receiving the leader's instructions and loudly said, "The sect trial conference has officially begun. The first 3 days are the trials of external disciples, and opponents are determined by drawing lots. The steward said and threw out the sign in his hand. A disciple outside quickly jumped up and grabbed a sign. "Ha, I drew it. The opponent is a gas refining level 1. I also drew it. Damn it, it's actually a 7-layer gas refining person. Some people are happy while others are sad." This fairy Yin secretly discussed with the system and asked it to help her cheat. "System, help me draw the weakest one." After receiving the signature, Xianyin spoke to the system in her heart. A wisp of unnoticed qi passed by, and when Xianyin opened her eyes, she indeed saw the sign written on it. Situ Nan, 2nd level of refining qi. Xianyin felt a burst of dark joy, her gaze fixed on the thin and weak boy in the crowd, her eyes full of determination. The next 3 days will be the internal disciples' trial, which will directly determine the disciples' ranking. After the steward's words fell, he threw out a string of signatures as usual. Wang Xianshu and Lan Kai casually shook hands and drew the signatures. Under the gaze of Elder Pan Yu's beautiful eyes, Mozi Yuan suppressed his composure and obtained the sign. When he saw the name on the sign, he unconsciously clenched his hand and looked uncontrollably at Wang Xianshu. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Cheating Discovered. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Cheating Discovered. So the competition is officially starting. With a command from the steward, the disciples all set out to offer sacrifices, and one round platform after another rose from the ground out of thin air. There are a total of 64 circular platforms, and external disciples with the same number can walk onto the same platform. The competition started quickly, and someone was knocked out of the round platform as soon as they went up. A muscular man laughed wildly and said, "I won. I'm an inner disciple." There are also people who are not evenly matched in terms of strength and play hard to give up. On Xianyin's side, she looked at the boy in front of her who was a circle thinner than herself, sneered, and was about to strike him out of the round platform. Unexpectedly, her blow fell through. The boy, who always lowered his head and had a gloomy expression, somehow dodged this sharp move in a ghostly manner. Xianyin just thought the other person was lucky, but he dodged all the next few dozen moves. Even the boy hasn't even fought back yet. Xianyin was so tired that she stood in the distance gasping for breath. She anxiously asked the system, "What's going on? Didn't she say he only refined qi on the 2nd level? He refined 2 layers of gas, while he refined 3 layers of gas himself. It shouldn't be the situation in front of him." Before she could continue asking, the person in front of her raised his head, his eyes as calm as death. He said coldly, "You're done, it's my turn now." As soon as the words fell, a shadow swept by. Before Xianyin could see the opponent's face clearly, she was knocked down by a punch, and her body retreated by dozens of steps, with only 1 step left to fall off the stage. And the movement on her side also caught the attention of Wang Xianshu. She looked at the gloomy boy and felt very unfamiliar, remembering that there seemed to be no such person in the previous life. Is it because after being reborn, there have also been some changes in this world? Thinking of this, Wang Xianshu's gaze was somewhat cautious. As for Xianyin, who is about to step down, she doesn't care at all. She values variables that will affect the world, and this boy is a variable. Xianyin turned her expectant gaze towards Wang Xianshu, only to find that her pupils were dilated, as if wandering. She looked at the male lead Long Outyan again, only to find that he was entangled by the female supporting Elder Pan Yu in the text, feeling exhausted and exhausted. I didn't even notice her situation. Xianyin fiercely bit Bei's teeth, thinking of her grand female lead, who had a mysterious background and was not even noticed by these cannon fodder. Seeing that the boy was about to attack again, Xianyin called out to the mysterious system in her divine consciousness with a heartfelt voice, "System, help me." The boy pounced in the air. He didn't know how the person had dodged his attack, but not only did he not feel discouraged, but a strange light also rose in his eyes. That's a look at finding a fun prey. Xianyin was so frightened by the sight that she finally realized how abnormal this person really was. She took a deep breath and silently added a white pill to her sleeve. The boy attacked again like a hungry wolf pouncing on it. While Xianyin struggled to dodge, she found a gap and threw the pill out. The pill was colorless and tasteless, and soon the boy was lost in thought. Xianyin took this opportunity and kicked him off the stage. This reversal undoubtedly attracted many admiring gazes, and Xianyin lifted her head proudly in front of the envious gazes of everyone. The boy who fell off the stage licked his lips without any reaction, only interested in a fairy sound on stage. Xianyin's scalp was numb from being stared at, and she thought to herself, this person is definitely a pervert. After the trial, the elders began to select disciples. Like in her previous life, Xianyin went to Dachong Peak and Mozi Yuan as her senior siblings. Originally, she couldn't go to Dachong Peak with her qualifications, but with Mozi Yuan's guarantee, Xianyin succeeded in going. Mozi Yuan originally thought that doing so would make someone pay attention to him, but when he looked over, Wang Xianshu looked at the person below in a daze. Mozi Yuan didn't know if he was unwilling or resentful, so he let out a heavy snort and walked away. The elders on stage are busy selecting disciples, while the disciples below are still outsiders. If external disciples want to continue staying in the sect, they have to do some miscellaneous work. Without resources and spirit stones, they cannot practice at all. The gloomy boy who lost the competition turned around and left, as if he had no attachment to it. But at this moment, Wang Xianshu walked step by step down from the high platform and came to him, extending her hand as white as jade. "What's your name?" Situ Nan was a bit stunned. He knew that this person was the strongest among the younger generation of the sect, even Mozi Yuan, who had already lost his reputation and had already formed pills, could not match this person. But what does this mean for her? Although puzzled, the boy's gaze remained incredibly clear as he looked at her and whispered, "Situ Nan." "Situ Nan." Wang Xianshu silently recited the name and immediately said, "From now on, you will be my little junior brother of Xiaoqiangfeng. I am the eldest senior sister, and this is Lan Kai, your second senior sister." Wang Xianshu pulled over the blue-clothed woman beside her, who was momentarily taken aback. Then, while eating the green pastry, she didn't forget to say hello. Situ Nan, who was only 9 years old, was stunned alone. Wang Xianshu thought that since there was such a variable in this world, instead of letting him drift outside and be uncontrollable, it would be better to earn income from Xiaoqiangfeng and be carefully taught by her, never letting him grow into a person who harms all beings. Elder Pan Yu joked, "Xianshu, your master is practicing in seclusion, and you even took in apprentices on behalf of your master." Wang Xianshu respectfully called out following the etiquette, "Elder Panyu." "All right, you don't have to worry, Elder, I'm just talking." Elder Panyu reached out and patted Wang Xianshu's shoulder, then followed closely with Mo Ziyuan's footsteps. As for why Elder Panyu is not jealous of the relationship between Wang Xianshu and Mo Ziyuan, in her opinion, Mo Ziyuan is just a small pet she keeps. Moreover, since Wang Xianshu has not yet opened her mind to love, it is impossible for her to be attracted to Mo Ziyuan. On the way back to Xiaoqiang Peak, on the long steps, Lan Kai jumped up and down in front, while Wang Xianshu walked slowly behind her. Finally, there was her newly recruited junior brother, who was nervously twisting his sleeves. "If you twist it again, your clothes will be torn." There was a pleasant sound coming from above, and the boy lifted his head and accidentally bumped into the cold snow peak. But this snow peak won't make him feel cold, instead it has a long-lost warmth. The boy asked cautiously, "Why did senior sister choose me as a disciple? I clearly lost." The boy's voice was soft, but fortunately, Wang Xianshu's ears and eyes were impressive. However, she really has no connection with this boy. What words do she need to say before he will believe it? Without waiting for her to speak, Lan Kai, who was walking ahead, ran down and rudely pinched Situ Nan's small face, saying, "Master, if you take me as a disciple, then you will be our little junior brother of Xiaoqiangfeng. Do you still need a reason? How stupid. Hurry up and leave, otherwise I won't be able to catch the meal. Your second senior sister, I will be hungry." Wang Xianshu looked at the little boy being pulled away by Lan Kai with a smile in her eyes, and a faint light fell on the few people, forming a beautiful picture. At this moment, Wang Xianshu did not know that in the future, when they went their separate ways and fought on their own, thinking of this scene would still feel warm. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Truth Behind the Cangming Divine Map. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Truth Behind the Cangming Divine Map. 3 months after the trial of the sect, there is a harmonious scene on Xiaoqiang Peak. Second senior sister, stop, I'll give up. Situ Nan wore a water blue robe specially designed by Lan Kai to go to the weaving department for him. Compared to the gloomy youth 3 months ago, Situ Nan was busy begging for mercy after Lan Kai knocked off his wooden sword. With a flattering smile, completely different from the previous youth, Lan Kai turned her sword back and took a step forward. She tenderly touched the head of her junior apprentice and said, "Junior apprentice, it's been 2 months now. You haven't even learned the most basic swordsmanship. I really don't know how you bring chi into your body." Situ Nan chuckled shyly and said, "I don't know, just suck and the spiritual energy will enter the body." After speaking, Situ Nan also made a suction gesture, and Lan Kai's sharp eyes saw that a wisp of spiritual energy was really being sucked in. Thumbs up and praises, amazing. Situ Nan turned to look at a bamboo house at the peak and said, "Senior sister, hasn't she left the level yet?" After successfully winning the first place in the sect trial, the senior sister prepared to enter the golden elixir period in seclusion. 3 days passed without any movement. Lan Kai said, "Don't worry, there are formations around senior sister that are enough to withstand the thunder calamity. If you're afraid, then you're afraid. This thunder calamity may be extraordinary." Lan Kai looked up, and the sky suddenly changed. Large thunderstorms gathered on this small bamboo peak. Inside the bamboo house, Wang Xianshu sat cross-legged. The next second, her eyes opened, her palms spread out, and a fragment of a golden map lay in her palm. Wang Xianshu silently recited, "Cangming Divine Map." She didn't expect that the Cangming Divine Map was still on her body. She thought it was still in the secret realm. At this moment it was not her turn to think clearly. At the moment when the treasure appeared, the thunderclouds that had already gathered in the sky seemed to be provoked. The thunderclouds began to roll wildly, and the next moment, a thunderbolt with thick adult arms struck down. Wang Xianshu's 30.6 Dharma formations suddenly lit up, and she let her sleeves dance wildly like an independent person. Just in time. Wang Xianshu narrowed her eyes, and a golden light flashed away in her eyes. The next moment, she rose up into the air, raising her hands above her head, intending to resist the lightning disaster hard. "Senior sister." The two spoke in unison, and Lan Kai looked worried and had to accelerate the formation to activate the world. Bang! The loud thunder made Wang Xianshu feel the sea swaying, and a hint of confusion appeared before her eyes. The first thunder calamity passed, and Wang Xianshu's cuffs were all twisted and torn. After forcefully swallowing a mouthful of blood stasis, the second thunder calamity descended again. This thunder raid was massive and alarmed people from other peaks. Who is crossing the tribulation here? How could the momentum be so great? Look, it's over from Xiaoqiangfeng. Surprisingly, it's senior sister. I'm afraid this kind of momentum is much more impressive than senior brother Mo half a year ago. Upon hearing this, Mozi Yuan, who was independent of the peak of Daqiang Peak, pursed his lips tightly and remained silent. Below him is the newly trained female lead Xianyin. Upon seeing this, Xianyin curiously asked the system, who is crossing the calamity. The screen displays the words, Wang Xianshu. Xianyin was so angry that she threw down her wooden sword and complained to herself, why is it her again? She pretended not to know each other during the trial, but now she has to advance again. Xianyin's teeth itch with hatred. Host, the favorability of the female lead has not increased for a long time. Would you like to change the target audience for the strategy? Although the sound of the system was still mechanically cold, Xianyin couldn't help but feel a hint of impatience. She was always taken care of by Wang Xianshu when she first came to the sect. The system said that because she was very similar to Wang Xianshu's 6-year-old sister who died young, she was so confident in choosing to conquer Wang Xianshu. Unexpectedly, something unexpected happened halfway, and Wang Xianshu ignored her. After much thought, Xianyin still felt that there was something wrong with the woman in blue who was following Wang Xianshu. Xianyin took a deep breath and said, "Give me some more time. I'll go see her tonight." Elder Panua is the first beauty in the sect, possessing a mature and plump beauty that young disciples do not possess. At the same time, she is also an expert in the primordial stage, enjoying the position of elder. She is currently playing chess with the leader on the main peak hall, while the other two elders are watching the battle. Elder Panua looked up at the distance, thunder roaring, and a white seed on his pure white long finger, unable to fall. Xiumei furrowed slightly and said, "This little girl is becoming more and more powerful. There is actually a hint of heavenly Tao in this thunder calamity." The leader wore a light blue robe and a precious blue hair crown, saying, "Xianshu is still young, but her qualifications far exceed those of ordinary people. She is a Jindan cultivator under 20 years old. If she succeeds, it may move the entire cultivation world." The leader put down the black chip, and the outcome of the chess game has been decided. He stood up with his hands down, one used to measure the power of the thunder calamity on Xiaoqiong Peak. "This calamity, Xianshu can't bear it, so he's about to leave the mountain," he said. Elder Panua and the other two elders quickly thought of who he was, and anticipation gradually appeared in their eyes. The thunder calamity has passed 7 times, and theoretically it should have ended, but the fact far exceeded Lan Kai's expectations. The 8th thunder calamity is here. Oh no, is the magic formation about to break? Just as she finished speaking, Wang Xianshu's entire formation was shattered into fragments, with golden rays surrounding the person at the center of the formation. She then rose to the sky and was crushed even finer by the pressure of thunderclouds. Wang Xianshu's simple bun had loosened, and a white jade hairpin fell to the ground. She looked up, but her eyes were crimson. Even the coldest person would turn red in the face of such a difficult thunderstorm. In the next moment, she rose into the air with a look of death in her eyes. "Come on. Golden elixir." "Jia." Wang Xianshu spat out a big mouthful of blood, and the thunder and lightning burned on her body, making her skin and flesh thunderous. Whenever Lei Jia wanted to drive her underground, Wang Xianshu wielded a flying sword and forcefully ascended against the sky. The cultivation of immortals by ordinary people is inherently against the heavens. And she, Wang Xianshu, will never easily give up her path. Immediately, he spread out his hands and was about to forcefully form a pill in the midst of the thunderous calamity. "Second senior sister, will big senior sister be okay?" Situ Nan asked with concern. Lan Kai was also uncertain in her heart. Her strength was low, and she only had some proficiency in formations. However, the blow she had just made backfired, and now she can no longer set up formations for Wang Xianshu. But she couldn't say that, she could only cheer the boy up, believe in senior sister, she will definitely succeed. Quickly, a golden elemental pill was formed in Wang Xianshu's hand, and the pitted surface was constantly becoming smooth and perfect. Wang Xianshu smiled a long time ago, but soon her smile solidified. Because the golden pill is shattered. The backlash caused by the broken golden pill made Wang Xianshu spit out a mouthful of blood again, and she was no longer able to resist the thunder calamity. Her body fell from the air, and as she saw the ninth thunder about to fall, it was a thunderbolt that could shatter a strong person from the primordial infant period. Senior sister, now that she is only building a solid foundation, how can she bear such a thunder disaster? Senior sister. Everyone was sweating for Wang Xianshu, but Xianyin, who secretly sneaked under Xiaoqiong Peak, felt greatly pleased. Wang Xianshu, you also have today. It seems that even if I don't take action, you will still die. At this moment, a person from the back mountain broke through the mountain and rescued Wang Xianshu. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Xianyin's Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Xianyin's Plan. The person dressed in white clothes, with long eyebrows and good eyes, lifted the clouds with one hand, and gently placed the rapidly falling Wang Xianshu on the ground with the other. This scene made the disciples of Xuantian Sect feel scalp tingling. That's a lightning disaster. Thunderbolt. Or the thunder calamity of the golden pill. How can they survive so easily from now on? However, some of these people recognize the identity of the newcomer with sharp eyes. It's Taiqing Jinren. He's Taiqing Jinren. This disciple was obviously very excited, his voice so loud that he wished everyone could hear him. How do you know that's Taiqing Jinren? Taiqing Jinren hasn't appeared in the mountains for over a decade. In fact, except for 13 years ago when Taiqing Jinren came forward to accept Wang Xianshu as his personal disciple, he never appeared again. Senior sister, regardless of her cultivation, has to be the highest-ranking person in the Xuantian Sect except for the sect leader in terms of seniority. Moreover, senior sister has impressive strength. Oh, my goodness. He can hardly explain it to others. Within the Xuantian Sect, the Taiqing Immortal is undoubtedly the strongest. Apart from the leader, who else could have such great abilities? Besides, isn't the leader standing there properly? The Taiqing Immortal turned his back to the disciples of the sect, and after lightly blocking Lei Jia with one hand, he disappeared in place. In the next moment, we arrived at the main hall. Pan Yu and the other two elders left wisely. The leader raised his eyebrows and said, "Why aren't you here to help your beloved disciple?" The Taiqing real person in front of him had an old face, white clothes, and a white beard that had already reached the ground. He looked ahead and said, "Xianshu has her own treasure, which can help her successfully form pills." Wang Xianshu knew who had arrived as soon as she felt the familiar spiritual power. She then took out a large handful of pills from her storage bag and imported them all, restoring about 50.6% of her strength. She spread out her hands and reunited the golden pill. At the same time, a pair of eyes were fixed on the flowing golden fluid in the majestic thundercloud. That is a breath that contains the highest principles of heaven. Adding it to the golden core can help her understand the heavenly way more thoroughly. 1 second before the leader knew what Taiqing Jinren was saying, the next second his gaze stopped at Wang Xianshu. Wang Xianshu rose up with a sword and grabbed the trace of the heavenly Tao aura, forcefully inserting it into the golden pill. At the same time, the ninth thunderbolt descended. But before Wang Xianshu could react this time, a golden light popped up from her forehead. A golden light actually reduced the thunder calamity by half. Wang Xianshu no longer hesitated at this moment, taking advantage of the heat, preparing to rebrand the golden pill. The strong wind blew up her long hair, and many images flashed through her mind, including past and present lives. Her memories seemed to be confused, and she couldn't remember the past. She only remembered that at the end of the scene was when she was covered in blood clothes and fell off a cliff. In addition, it seems that a large amount of information has flooded in, causing disputes, killings, and wars among various sects in the Tianxian continent, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. In the distant future, the demon race appeared on one side of the continent. A witch led the demon clan to attack the heavenly Xian continent, causing great suffering. Wang Xianshu finally seemed to see Mozun leading the disciples of the sect, fighting desperately to resist. But in the end, the entire continent was still unable to escape extinction. The continent was destroyed and turned into dust in the universe, and all living beings on the continent, whether ordinary or cultivators, perished along with it. At this moment, Jindan Cheng. Thunder clouds scatter. Wang Xianshu, covered in bloodstains, fell from the air, and the newly formed golden pill surface emitted a strange golden light. In the next moment, she retreated back into her body. Senior sister. Lan Kai quickly stepped forward to catch Wang Xianshu, and Situ Nan also helped to help transport Wang Xianshu back to her room for rest. No one expected that Wang Xianshu would be unconscious for half a month. One morning, Wang Xianshu woke up leisurely. After a while, the memory finally came back to her. She didn't quite remember what she had seen before, but when she opened her palm, a fragment of the Cangming divine map appeared in her palm. In the final lightning disaster, it was the Cangming divine map that automatically appeared, blocking most of the thunder for her. She has never formed an agreement with the divine map. Why would the supreme treasure recognize her as the main one? She thought that Cangming divine map was just an ordinary map, but the faint images in her mind told her that this precious treasure seemed not to be a chicken rib. Senior sister, are you awake? Looking up, Lan Kai stood at the door holding medicine and food. When she saw Wang Xianshu finally waking up, she breathed a deep sigh of relief. You finally woke up. Xiaonan is worried about you. Wang Xianshu drank the medicine and smiled at the words, really? I'll go see him. On Xiaoqiang Peak, Situ Nan sat on a stone bench, propping his chin with one hand and tapping 3 fingers on the table with the other, looking at the fairy sound in front of him with great interest. At this moment, Xianyin was in a state of embarrassment. She had been waiting for Wang Xianshu on Xiaoqiang Peak for half a month, during which it rained and thundered. When she arrived, her delicate and beautiful appearance was no better than that of a drowning dog. What's even more despicable is being pulled out by the gloomy boy in front of me. What are you doing here? The young man asked. The questioning tone almost made Xianyin's anger surge again. After comforting herself, Xianyin forced out a smile and said, I'm here to find senior sister. Looking for senior sister. Situ Nan stopped her from entering, and Xianyin wanted to break in, but found out that at some point, this kid had already refined 3 layers of qi. Thinking that she had wasted half a month of her time, maybe she could break through the 4th layer of qi refining by using it for cultivation. Xianyin was so angry that her chest hurt. At this moment, her sharp eyes caught sight of Wang Xianshu coming out in a robe. She warmly waved and said, Senior sister. But Wang Xianshu just glanced at her and sat down on her own, sipping a cup of tea. What's up? This tea is good, she said obviously. The latter sentence was meant for Lan Kai. Lan Kai. This tea is brewed with morning dew, and Xiaonan goes to the mountain to pick it every day. Lucky and bitter. Wang Xianshu said. She was indeed right in her eyes. This child is a playable talent. And Wang Xianshu's simple praise could make Situ Nan happy for a long time. After being exposed to air for a long time, Xianyin couldn't help but speak up, Senior sister, I came to see you for something. Oh, what can I do for you? Xianyin hesitated and looked at Lan Kai and Situ Nan, while Wang Xianshu signaled for them to walk further away. Xianyin approached Wang Xianshu, and in a place where Lan Kai couldn't see, a sword was drawn from her sleeve. Senior sister, it's really sad that you haven't come to see me for so long. The tone was mournful, but the attack was extremely ruthless. The sword emitting a chill was about to pierce into Wang Xianshu's chest. Xianyin's expression had an instant of malice. She had originally planned to have a good conversation with Wang Xianshu and regain her favor, but Wang Xianshu ignored her at all and allowed her to reign on the peak for half a month. In addition, during the last trial, she chose a gloomy and unpleasant young man, but did not choose her. She has long harbored resentment. Now, it is up to me to take your life with my own hands. Wang Xianshu was weak and had not yet had time to consolidate her strength, but at least she was also a cultivator of the golden elixir. Even if she was risking her injuries to worsen, she had to avoid this blow. Wang Xianshu felt that this weapon seemed particularly unusual. If pierced into her body by her, the cold energy on the blade may instantly escape into her body, no matter how hard it is to dispel. But at this moment, a golden light flashed on Wang Xianshu's body, and she unexpectedly bounced the weapon blade away. At the same time, the true Taiqing appeared here. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Changing Trigrams. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Changing Trigrams. Xianyin quickly put away the ice blade, but the action in that moment still made Taiqing look at her with suspicion. Host, hurry. Run. The normally active system suddenly shut down, and no matter how Xianyin called, there was no response. At just one glance, immortal Taiqing was already unable to resist the immortal sound, lying on the ground, sweating profusely. Where was the arrogance just now? Please spare my life, immortal Taiqing. I am a disciple of Daqiong Peak. Xianyin is busy begging for mercy. The disciple of Daqiong Peak. The voice of Taiqing Zhenren couldn't hear joy or anger, making it difficult to understand. Yes, real person, I'm here to find senior sister. Xianyin quickly turned her pleading gaze towards Wang Xianshu. Wang Xianshu's expression was indifferent, as if she didn't intend to plead for her. Plead with her? It's really ridiculous. A second ago, I was still holding a sword and trying to kill her, but now I have to rely on her to plead for her. She couldn't tell Xianyin's brain was so stupid before. However, it was not good to keep her here. People from other peaks thought that her disciples from Xiaoqiong Peak were bullying them, so Wang Xianshu casually waved them away. Xianyin, who walked down the mountain path, was filled with hatred and said, Wang Xianshu, next time, I will definitely take your life. She is now full of anger, and as someone who only has 3 levels of qi refining, she is almost killed under the pressure of the true immortal level. The power of Xuantian is so terrifying that killing her for a period of qi refining doesn't even require thoughts, just a glance. Practice. She must cultivate diligently. Let these people who look down on themselves eventually fall into their own hands. The system just started to sound when we were almost at Daqiong Peak. Host, you're not going to die anymore. You dare to provoke the golden elixir cultivator with just 1 qi refining cultivation. Not to mention that Wang Xianshu is a golden elixir, her master is a true immortal and an invincible existence on this continent. Under the criticism from the system, Xianyin, who was already in a bad mood, couldn't help but complain, I didn't mean to. The opportunity was so good just now. Host, didn't you say you wanted to guide the female supporting character? Why did you change your mind and purchase the Xianbing blade from the mall? I don't want to conquer her now, can't I? Xianyin crawled into the blanket, her voice muffled. Quickly, the system jumped out of the selection again, asking whether the host should replace the strategy object. Just then, there was a knocking outside the door. Xianyin, are you inside? It's senior brother. Upon hearing the voice of someone approaching, Xianyin jumped up from the bed and took out the only pill from her storage bag, painfully taking it. This is the only second-grade pill she has given since entering the inner door. However, senior brother has always been sharp, so he cannot let him discover anything unusual about him. After sorting it out, Xianyin opened the door and said, You find me, senior brother. Xianyin lifted her eyes and saw the handsome and plump Mosey Yuan. She sighed to herself, no wonder he could become the male lead in the book. With this appearance, she could captivate many people. The plot has now reached a period of ambiguity between Elder Panua and the male protagonist, providing him with resources and practicing techniques. However, the male protagonist Long Outyan thinks he is noble and only accepts what others have, but he always refuses to bow down and submit. Speaking of which, Elder Panyu is really strange. After living for 300 years, he was actually played with by a golden pill cultivator in his early 20s. However, the more things Elder Panua gives to the male lead, the more these things will eventually belong to her rightful female lead. Sure enough, Mosey Yuan took out many heavenly and earthly treasures from his storage bag, with a warm smile. I know you just arrived at Dachong Peak and haven't had anything yet, but don't worry, senior brother has it here. Junior sister, you can take it and use it, he said. For some reason, the girl in front of her was clearly ordinary in appearance, without outstanding appearance or strong strength. But Mo Zun couldn't control himself and couldn't help but want to get closer to her. If Xianyin knew his thoughts, she would definitely tell him that this was the female lead halo. Thank you, senior brother. Xianyin happily accepted these pills and cultivation techniques. Thank you, the moon is very round tonight. Are you going to admire the moon together, junior sister? The senior brother with high strength personally invited, but how could Xianyin refuse? Okay. Change the target of the strategy to Mo Zun, murmured in my heart, successfully changed the target of the strategy. Mosey Yuan's favorability increased by 5, and currently has a favorability rating of 40. Master, how did you clear the level? Wang Xianshu had a rare smile on her face, and she looked at the old man in white in front of her with infinite gratitude in her eyes. I figured it would be difficult for you to cross the tribulation, so I left early. The kind old man caressed the girl's head. Lan Kai-yi saw Tai Qingzhenren and quickly pulled Situ Nan over. Master. Is it Kai-yi, the one behind you? The tone of Tai Qingzhenren was somewhat hesitant. Lan Kai-yi said, it's the junior brother that my senior sister collected on your behalf. His name is Situ Nan. The young man timidly called out, Master. Tai Qingzhenren was slightly stunned, and then quickly laughed. This smile completely calmed the young man's hanging heart. He is still afraid that his master will not accept him. Master. Lan Kai-yi took her junior apprentice and volunteered to cook. Wang Xianshu called out and said, Master, how long will you stay in seclusion after leaving this time? Wang Xianshu knew that beings like Tai Qingzhenren would only stay in seclusion for a long time. This time, due to her own reasons, her master was able to leave the seclusion briefly, and she was afraid that she would soon be closed again. Unexpectedly, Tai Qingzhenren shook his head and said, No, this time I will wait for you to return from the human trial. Going to the mortal world for trial. Where? A hint of excitement rose in Wang Xianshu's eyes. She had said goodbye to her parents and came to cultivate immortality for 13 years. The former sheep horn girl has now become the enviable golden core cultivator. Wang Xianshu thought, if she could really experience in the secular world, wouldn't she be able to go home halfway? Donglin's Hao, Dian Dynasty. Tai Qingzhenren said lightly. Wang Xianshu looked even more excited because Donglin Prefecture was her home. The Wang family was one of the 3 governors of Donglin Prefecture, and was also a vassal of the humorous in various dynasties of the Dian dynasty. It was also a grand family that lasted for thousands of years. 1,000 years may seem like a fleeting moment for a cultivator, but in the ever-changing world, few families can continue for 1,000 years. However, Wang Xianshu quickly calmed down, and it was not ordinary people who could make their cultivators take action. There should be even more powerful beings. As expected, Tai Qingzhenren continued, the secret report sent from Donglin showed that some members of the demon clan had entered Donglin Prefecture and annihilated more than 10 disciples arranged by Xuantian Sect there. The leader attached great importance to this matter and sent disciples from Xiaoqiong Peak, Dachong Peak, and Xiaofu Peak together. On the day of departure, Wang Xianshu saw Xianyin following behind Mosey Yuan at a glance, but she didn't pay much attention. Mosey Yuan saw Wang Xianshu, dressed in white and with a sword at her waist, but her expression became unnatural. Firstly, she had formed an astonishing formation of the golden elixir not long ago, far surpassing him. Secondly, in the internal competition, he lost to her again. Although many people are not very surprised by this result, he has always been suppressed by her, and the accumulated resentment is about to be suppressed. Mo Ziyuan worked hard to regulate his emotions and make his expression look more normal. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Decline of the Wang Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The decline of the Wang family. Behind Wang Xianshu were Lan Kai, who was eating pastries, and Situ Nan, who had always been quiet, and Lo Qi. This child seems to have been born with this unknown personality, and only when Lan Kai teases him will he exhibit the personality that a normal person should have. A strong wind blew in, and everyone looked up. I saw a person wearing a black robe with runes drawn from his notes standing on a flying boat. The wind blew his robe and it made a hunting sound. The young man had an unrestrained face, holding a dog-tail grass in his mouth. He saw Wang Xianshu in the crowd at a glance and jumped off the spaceship, standing steadily in front of everyone. Senior sister, I heard that you broke through the golden elixir period a few days ago and produced a golden elixir that is no less than that of senior brother Mo. I went out a few days ago to buy talisman paper. It's really a pity that I didn't see your heroic side, senior sister. The young man looked regretful, but was mercilessly pushed aside by Wang Xianshu and flew onto the flying boat. Ling Xiao, if you say that, have you drawn the thunder talisman? Lan Kai looked innocent, but with just one sentence, she hit the bull's eye. The young man known as Ling Xiao is only 25 years old, and he belongs to the extremely young generation in both the cultivation world and the mortal world. He is the proud disciple of Elder Lei Ming from Xiaofu Peak, and also the first person among the younger generation. The path of talismanship is very difficult to cultivate, and tools such as talisman paper, cinnabar, and yuan brush are particularly expensive. If there are not many golden and silver mountains in the family, don't think about it. Ling Xiao spat out blood and said, if one day I draw a thunder talisman, I'll chop you first. Humph. Lan Kai made a face at him and said, you dare not, junior brother. Let's go. Ling Xiao only then saw that when did Xiaoqiangfeng have another disciple. He just went on a trip and something happened that he didn't know. Mo Ziyuan was about to have a conversation with Ling Xiao with Xianyin, but to his surprise, the other party glanced at him and said, the ship is about to depart. Senior brother Mo should keep up as soon as possible. The attitude has reversed 360 degrees from before, very indifferent. Mo Ziyuan pounced in the air, feeling extremely resentful towards this person in his heart. However, although the other person's cultivation was not as good as his own, he was a skilled player in using talismans. Once he started fighting, he might not necessarily be his opponent. A talisman is inherently profound and unpredictable. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and agree, carrying Xianyin onto the spaceship. Unexpectedly, Ling Xiao saw his beautiful figure and felt even more disdainful in his heart. Looking at the fairy-like senior sister on the spaceship, Ling Xiao was simply holding on to the injustice of the senior sister. How could senior sister have an engagement with such a fickle man? Little did she know that Wang Xianshu's visit to Donglin was aimed at eradicating the demon clan's heretics, and at proposing to her father to terminate her engagement with Mo Ziyuan. If the Wang family owes the Mo family a deep affection, she can repay it in the future, whether it is to provide the Mo family with cultivation resources or to protect the Mo family for 10 years. And there's no need to make promises about the engagement. In her previous life, Mo Ziyuan was seriously injured in the 7-star sect. When the judges left, she stormed the sect at night and rescued him from the brink of death. At that time, she was still undead and was intercepted by 3 golden core cultivators on her way back to the sect, almost dying. She had a master named Tai Qingjinren, who never lacked resources and natural treasures. However, when Mo Yuanyuan first entered the sect, his cultivation level was much lower, and he was almost expelled from the inner sect. Later, he gained some unknown skills, and his cultivation increased rapidly. In just 6 years, he reached the level of foundation building and completed 7 layers of tidal foundation building. But it seems that he never lacks the protection of beautiful women around him. Just Xuantian Sect has Elder Panua and Immortal Sound, and there are more women in the sect who are willing to help him without her name. She did everything she could for Mosey Yuan, and almost died in the end. If it weren't for her master appearing in time and using her divine soul to save her, she probably wouldn't have existed long ago. Even though she had done so much for Mosey Yuan, he remained unmoved and all the beautiful female cultivators and elders were brought into the harem. Having completely died once, Wang Xianshu knew she had to see her way earlier. Ascending to the extreme and becoming a true immortal like her master, breaking through the shackles of the world and going to higher places, is the pursuit of Wang Xianshu, who deserves her immortal bone. Love in the mortal world can only be broken. Senior sister, I heard that Donglin's house is your home. Can we go to your house? Lan Kai stood in front of the railing, holding her chin in both hands and asking. In a room inside the cabin, Ling Xiao waved his sleeve and many talismans flew out of his sleeve. Under his guidance, each talisman was pasted in its corresponding position, and the formation of the flying boat was activated, with bursts of light filling the entire room. The spaceship suddenly took off and flew up to an altitude of 10,000 meters. After adjusting its direction, it began to advance towards the target direction. When flying to a high altitude thousands of miles away from the sect, the spaceship seemed to have hit a thin film. This was the Xuantian Sect's protective formation, and with the power of the same sect, the spaceship was safely released. If outsiders attack, this formation can seriously damage a leader-level presence. Such power is naturally arranged by the Taiqing Immortal. After flying out of the Xuantian Sect, it continued to fly hundreds of thousands of miles, along the way through a primitive forest. A monkey covered in yellow fur climbed up the treetop, staring at the spaceship curiously and scratching its head. Because it is close to the immortal gate, the creatures growing here carry a few strands of spiritual energy, and wisdom flows in their eyes. After flying for a month and a half, when Lan Kai was about to fall asleep, Situ Nan, who was standing by, saw the ant-sized human buildings and the smell of fireworks under the mist, excitedly shaking Lan Kai awake. Second senior sister, look, the human world has arrived. What? Lan Kai, who woke up in a daze, wiped her eyes and followed Situ Nan's gaze. Their 4 eyes were as bright as stars and they looked at each other, saying, we're really here. Senior sister, come out quickly. We're in Donglin's house. When Lan Kai called out, she woke everyone up and walked to the balcony with a sleepy expression on her face. Ling Xiao shrugged and pulled his eyes, wearing a white coat and holding a pillow in his arms. He spoke in a mournful tone, Miss Lan, you've said so many times this month that you've been to Donglin, and you've always called out the big guy. It's really not heavy. Oh my, I didn't lie to you. We've really arrived. Ling Xiao's drowsiness instantly decreased by half. He stretched his neck to look down, turned around, and entered the room. After coming out, he was already dressed elegantly. It's still the uniform exclusive to Xiaofu Peak, only when the clothes are full of talismans can the strength of the talisman master be reflected. Ling Xiao pretended to be profound and said, Miss Lan, are you willing to travel the world with me and enjoy tea and delicious food? It wasn't until he turned his head that he realized that Lan Kai had not paid any attention to him and had already run to the side of the senior sister. This made Ling Xiao feel extremely angry and almost broke his newly bought fan. He shook his head and walked away pretending to be sad. It's heartbreaking to have such a beautiful scenery without a beautiful companion. He turned his head and saw the scene of Mosey Yuan and Xianyin standing together chatting happily, which made him even more sad. At this moment, Donglin Prefecture has arrived. A few people walked out of the quiet alleyway at the intersection of the road, and those who walked from 3 directions met each other with a tacit understanding. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Massacre of Doom. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Massacre of Doom. Wang Xianshu worked in groups of 3, Mozi Yuan worked in groups of 2, while Ling Xiao acted alone. The movements of the members of the demon clan are mysterious. After some discussion, they decided to split up and never startle the snake. 3 groups of people turned their heads and headed in different directions, unconsciously merging into the crowd. It was night, and after walking with the 2 of them for a day, Wang Xianshu arrived at a house. On the plaque, 2 large characters were written in gilded font. Wang Fu. This was personally written by the emperor of the Dian dynasty, in memory of the loyal members of the royal family. Lan Kai saw these 2 big characters with a bright expression and said, "Senior sister, is this your family? You're so angry. Isn't that right, Xiaonan?" Situ Nan, who was inexplicably slapped on the head, could only agree, "Yes, yes. Second senior sister is really right." Lan Kai looked at her junior apprentice who knew the current situation with satisfaction, thinking that she truly deserved to have personally taught him. But soon, she felt something was wrong and said, "Junior brother, have you ever felt that it's too cold and quiet around here? Why isn't there anyone around?" One big and one small hugged their arms tightly and said, "Yes, it's so lonely." The 2 of them looked at Wang Xianshu in unison, only to find that most of their senior sister's face was hidden in the shadows, and a pair of clear and cold eyes were flickering with the lights in the distant alley. There is a strange and subtle smell of blood in the air. Wang Xianshu suddenly moved. There are no guards guarding the door, and it opens as soon as it is pushed open. Lan Kai and the other 2 quickly followed and, upon seeing the situation inside the mansion, took a deep breath together. In the garden of the royal mansion, the walkways are filled with corpses, and the cobblestone paved paths are all piled up. Corpses lay everywhere, bleeding thousands of miles. This is a massacre. A few people carefully avoided the body. Situ Nan was the youngest and could only hold on to Lan Kai's hand tightly, his body trembling lightly. Wang Xianshu's face was as cold as frost, and she walked through the mansion with familiarity. From outside the mansion to the inner chamber, there was not a single survivor. Who is it that has such a deep hatred and resentment towards her Wang family, and has resorted to this cruel act? What made Wang Xianshu even more anxious was that she had not yet found the traces of her father and mother. Thinking that her mother was just a soft mortal, unable to survive under a sharp knife, her heart became even more anxious. Just then, a faint breath came from behind the rockery. Several people immediately became alert, and Wang Xianshu, holding the white scabbard in her hand, carefully walked over. A wet nurse. Seeing the woman constantly moving behind the rockery due to fear, Wang Xianshu exclaimed in shock. "Are you?" The woman in front of her didn't seem to know her, and when she heard her voice, her expression softened slightly, but she quickly became alert again. "It's me, wet nurse." Wang Xianshu couldn't care about anything else anymore, threw her sword, and stepped forward to help the woman. "I'm Xianshu. You have been taking care of me since I was young. When I was 7 years old, I went to Lingtai Mountain to practice." "Xianshu. Mississippi, is it really you?" The wet nurse's face was filled with tears, and she confirmed several times, afraid that she might mistake someone. "It's me, wet nurse, I'm Xianshu. I'm back to see you all." Wang Xianshu said. "Miss, by the way, miss, go and save Madam. Madam is still in the secret room." The wet nurse suddenly became flustered, pulling Wang Xianshu to take her elsewhere. Lan Kai and Situ Nan looked at each other and decided to follow. Dressed in a long and messy hallway, the wet nurse led everyone to the innermost room, took down the nearby candle for lighting, and then kept groping on the wall. I don't know where to press it, but the room suddenly began to vibrate violently. The walls retreated to both sides, and a dark secret passage appeared in front of everyone. The wet nurse walked with a few people and chatted, "I haven't seen the young lady for 10 years. I can't even recognize her anymore. By the way, are those two people behind the young lady your friends? Wang Xianshu and her three companions walked through the narrow secret passage, thinking that they had never heard of it before. Upon hearing this, they said, they are my junior sister and junior brother. Oh, it turns out to be the young lady's junior brothers and sisters. I'm disrespectful. Under the faint candlelight, the wrinkled face of the wet nurse suddenly became very eerie in an instant, and her shadow under the candlelight also surged several times, like a cannibalistic ghost in the dark night. Situ Nan looked at him with a strange light emanating from his eyes. Looking at the ever-changing shadows, there is a strange sense of hunger. Lan Kai was born in Lingtai Mountain from a young age and has been nourished by spiritual energy all year round. Suddenly, she received yin energy, which made her body very uncomfortable. Coupled with her always sensitive intuition, she felt something was wrong. Only Wang Xianshu seemed to be wandering around the world, with all her heart set on finding her own mother. The wet nurse suddenly stopped. Lan Kai and Situ Nan both secretly exclaimed that it was not good. The candle fell to the ground, the only light source went out, and the entire secret passage that couldn't even reach out fell into darkness in an instant. Senior sister. Lan Kai let out a cry and groped for the secret passage with both hands. Not far away, there was only a sound of the handover of weapons. After several loud noises, a brief silence was restored. Immediately, the voice of the wet nurse rang out, Wang Xianshu, my lord had long anticipated that you would come, so he instructed us to first eliminate your entire family. I wonder if senior sister Xuantian Sect is still satisfied with this result. Compared to the gentle and kind voice before, there was now a voice that made Lan Kai uncomfortable all over. If it's not immortal, nor does it have the dry and fishy smell of a demon, then it's a demon. But how could a demon be in the form of a mortal? Is it just you? Wang Xianshu's voice sounded extremely calm, and the wet nurse hesitated for a moment. What? Immediately, I realized it and burst into a wild laugh. It's truly my senior sister, so you've already guessed my identity. What are you pretending to do? If you don't do this, how could you be willing to show your true identity? Upon hearing their conversation, Lan Kai felt a severe headache. What is all this talking about? Until she realized that at some point, Situ Nan was no longer by her side. So, what else do you know? The sound of weapons colliding echoed ahead, with increasing frequency. The voice of the wet nurse is almost hoarse. The other side remained quiet for a while, and then the woman calmly said something. Did the Mahist school send you here? You. How do you know? The wet nurse exclaimed in shock. It seemed shameful and uneasy that Wang Xianshu easily guessed their purpose. Wang Xianshu didn't plan to continue playing with the other party and reached out to take out a night light from the storage space. As soon as this light comes out, the entire secret passage shines like daylight. The original intention was to quickly inquire about the whereabouts of his mother, but unexpectedly, he saw an extremely shocking scene. Xiaonan, what are you doing? The painful voice of the wet nurse echoed inside the secret passage, and the reason for her pain was that Situ Nan squatted on one side, devouring her shadow one by one. What kind of monster are you? Even the wet nurse, who has fallen into demonic cultivation, is extremely afraid. She has never seen a cultivator who can eat someone else's shadow. In the face of the wet nurse's unwillingness to suffer, Situ Nan ate all her shadows and let out a satisfied hiccup. He looked up and realized that Wang Xianshu and Lan Kai were both staring at him. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. If you want to divorce, you also want me to divorce. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. If you want to divorce, you also want me to divorce, teacher, senior sister, what are you looking at me for? Situ Nan was inexplicably uneasy. Although he didn't know what he had done wrong, he vaguely felt that his behavior was not accepted, so he inexplicably felt guilty. Unexpectedly, Lan Kai was surprised and couldn't even close her mouth. When she realized it, she immediately clapped her hands and exclaimed. "Junior brother, this is the ultimate move you learned from there. Teach me quickly." The young junior brother awkwardly scratched his head and said, "No, I didn't learn. It seems like I was born with this skill." "Amazing." Lan Kai gave a thumbs up and then calmly took out a piece of osmanthus cake from the space. She wanted to eat something to soothe her frightened soul. As usual, second senior sister with sharp eyes, Situ Nan nervously turned his gaze to Wang Xianshu. Wang Xianshu put away her sword and didn't even look at the bony corpse on the ground. She walked straight forward. Lan Kai chased after her and said, "Senior sister, where are we going now?" "Go find my mother." Lan Kai. "Will senior sister's mother be here?" That person just now had a demonic aura on him. He should be a detective of the demon clan. She brought us here, wouldn't it be a trap? Wang Xianshu shook her head and said, "No, although the demon clan has a technique that can temporarily attach itself to mortals and obtain fragments of their memories in their minds, I have checked and found that the wet nurse's divine consciousness is severely damaged. It should be because she has been unwilling to reveal her mother's whereabouts before. It wasn't until our appearance that the wet nurse relaxed her guard. My mother was in this secret passage, and it wasn't until recently that the demon cultivator also found out." Lan Kai suddenly realized, "Oh, I know now, that's why it's trying to trick us into solving it together." But soon, Lan Kai thought of another doubt. "By the way, senior sister, you said earlier that it was sent by the Mahist school. How did you see it, senior sister?" Upon hearing this, Wang Xianshu paused for a moment and then took out a jade pendant with a water cloud pattern from her waist. She explained, "It should have recognized this jade pendant. Back then, our family had a good relationship with the Mo family, and the parents of the two families arranged for me and the eldest son of the Mo family to marry each other. This jade pendant is a token of exchange between the two families." Lan Kai took the jade pendant and saw it shining brightly under the night light. At a glance, she knew that it was not vulgar. Lan Kai was born in Xuantian Sect from a young age and was loved by the sect leader and real people. She has never accepted too many dirty things, but she is extremely intelligent. All the previous murders and the destruction of the royal family have already made her guess something. Situ Nan ran behind the two, covering his mouth and almost burping. "Mahist, do you want to get married?" Lan Kai accidentally slipped her tongue and quickly covered her mouth, carefully glancing at Wang Xianshu's expression. Fortunately, senior sister doesn't have much expression, she's indifferent. But this is very abnormal. Everyone in Xuantian Sect knows, but everyone knows. Senior sister and senior brother Mo have been engaged since childhood. Although they don't often meet in the sect, senior sister always shares any good things with senior brother Mo. Especially a few years ago, when everyone didn't know who senior brother Mo was. Later, senior brother Mo rose to fame and even surpassed senior sister in his brilliance. Master Jie just stopped sending resources to senior brother Mo. And is it still her senior sister who heard the Mo family's calm and composed senior sister in front of her? If Wang Xianshu knew her thoughts, she would definitely tell her that in the past, Wang Xianshu might have spared Mo Ziyuan for the sake of family friendship. Even if she knew that Mo Ziyuan was surrounded by beautiful women in the past, she would still consider the relationship between the two families and not argue with him. But now, not to mention that Wang Xianshu has gone through a life and death crisis and has seen through the so-called emotions. Even with the revenge of the Wang family's destruction today, Wang Xianshu would seek revenge. Besides, if the Mo family really wants to divorce, why do they need to go so far? They insist that our Wang family has no survivors before they will give up. Wang Xianshu pinched the Xuantian jade pendant and delivered a majestic spiritual energy into it. The jade pendant couldn't bear it, and fine cracks appeared. Wang Xianshu said, "If the Mo family wants to divorce, it should be up to me. Once we find our mother, we will first go to the Mo family to investigate the situation. Lan Kai nodded firmly. The Mo family, these old people who did not keep their promises, as the senior sister who valued and trusted the most, she would definitely seek justice from them. Do you think so, junior brother? Situ Nan, who was suddenly named, was taken aback for a moment and reacted. He also said firmly, I have consumed all their demonic energy. Okay, have ambition. Lan Kai patted the younger martial brother's shoulder. Although she didn't know how he had developed this skill, no matter what, he was still their younger martial brother. Being a senior sister will definitely protect her junior brother. This seemingly endless secret passage has finally reached its end. In the bright spot ahead, there was a faint cry of a baby and a gentle soothing voice from a gentle lady. Good girl, my mother is singing to you, okay? Subsequently, there came a series of faint singing sounds. Mother. Wang Xianshu recognized it, this is her mother's voice, there can be no mistake. Although she couldn't quite hear what her mother was saying, Wang Xianshu still quickened her pace, just hoping to be faster, even faster. Rushing into the light, what caught the eye was a larger cave space, forming a huge circular shape with varying degrees of protrusions on the surrounding cliffs. At the bottom, there was also the constant sound of water rushing against the rocks. In the middle, there is a stone bed, on which there is a newly born wife and a newborn baby. In front of Wang Xianshu is a cliff. If it were an ordinary person, they would never dare to jump off easily, but she is a cultivator. Even if she falls from a height of 10,000 meters, she is unscathed, let alone this mere cliff. Wang Xianshu flew down and lightly tapped the water surface to come to the lady. Lan Kai and Situ Nan followed closely below. The woman stared blankly at the familiar and unfamiliar face in front of her, and after a while, she lost her voice and said, You. Are you sure? Mother, it's me. Wang Xianshu grabbed her mother's hand and pressed it against her face, feeling the warmth of her little daughter whom she had not seen in a long time. The woman's tears could no longer be contained, falling drop by drop. Sure, you have finally come back, but our Wang family no longer exists, she choked up. The woman was extremely sad. Her body, which had just given birth, was already weak. She lived in this dark cave for an unknown amount of time, and without saying a few words, she began to cough. Wang Xianshu quickly comforted and said, Mother, please don't speak yet. I'll take you out. Can. Mrs. Wang was still a bit scared, as the scenes of those wearing black armor, resembling evil spirits killing the people in the royal mansion were still vividly remembered. Lan Kai immediately noticed Mrs. Wang's hesitation in front of her and comforted her, Mother. Ah no, madam, don't worry for now, master will protect you. Mrs. Wang looked at Wang Xianshu, who introduced the two. This woman in blue is named Lan Kai, and the young man is named Situ Nan. She is her daughter's junior sister and junior brother. Madame Wang's heart was completely settled. It turns out that she is Shuer's junior brother and junior sister. Little junior sister doesn't need to be so close. She is both Shuer's closest person and also a close person to me. If you don't mind, you can call me Mother together with Shuer. As soon as she finished speaking, Lan Kai's eyes lit up instantly and she exclaimed with great joy. Mother. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Investigation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Investigation. After leaving the secret room, Wang Xianshu and others rented an inn in the city with a woman and a newborn baby. In the inn, Wang Xianshu held a baby with sparse hair in her arms and looked at each other. Wang Xianshu has not reacted yet. Her mother has given birth to a little sister for her, and her first thought is that she doesn't seem to be the youngest in the family. Lan Kai walked into the door and saw this scene with a thump smile. Senior sister, you look so silly. Mrs. Wang covered her sleeves and smiled. She was already extremely beautiful, even in dim places like underground caves, she couldn't conceal her beauty, let alone in the brightly lit inn at this moment. Lan Kai's first time being obsessed with flowers was when she faced her senior sister. Since seeing her senior sister for the first time on Xiaoqiang Peak, she has decided to follow her senior sister. This is her second time being obsessed with flowers. Lan Kai propped her chin and squatted in front of the bed, with a silly expression on her face. "Mother kiss, you look good," she said. Madame Wang was momentarily stunned, her cheeks quietly blushing, and she smiled silently. "So, mother, what is her name?" Wang Xianshu pointed at the baby who was constantly tugging at her sleeve with a black line on her face and asked in displeasure. "Her nickname is Nan Nan, but she hasn't had a chance to get her big name yet. Your father may not be able to come back." Speaking of this, the lady's eyes lit up with sorrow, looking out the window at the bright sunshine with a worried expression on her face. Wang Xianshu couldn't help but feel a little anxious and asked, "Dad, what has happened to him? Why hasn't he even seen you give birth to a little sister so far?" Wang Xianshu instinctively felt that her father was not the kind of dishonest person who would abandon his wife and children, but when she saw her mother struggling to give birth alone, she couldn't help but blame her father. Silly child. How could a mother not understand the thoughts of her own daughter? Mrs. Wang touched Wang Xianshu's hair and sighed, "Your father was impeached by Governor Mo, stripped of his official position, and exiled to Jingzhou. It's the Mahist school again." Lan Kai angrily said. Donglin Prefecture has a vast territory and abundant resources, belonging to a rare fertile land of the Dian dynasty. In order to coordinate management, a total of 3 governors were established to jointly manage Donglin Prefecture. Since General Wang no longer went to the battlefield, the Wang family has given the position of governor to General Wang for retirement. I should have had no worries in my life, but who would have thought that I would end up to where I am now? The Wang family was completely destroyed, and Lady Wang's daughter gave birth to a child in a cave. All of this was actually done by the Mo family. Is there no one in the Wang family who bullied her? Seeing Wang Xianshu completely angry, Mrs. Wang sighed leisurely. Fortunately, our mother and daughter can still reunite. Now that the Mo family has become the governor of Donglin Prefecture, they have raised countless elite soldiers and generals. It is not beneficial for us to confront them rashly. Sure, why don't we stop pursuing her and give up? Why don't we go to the Dalan clan to seek refuge with your elder sister? In Mrs. Wang's eyes, the Mo family disregarded the affection of the two families and made such a ruthless decision. They were afraid that even if they came to seek justice, they would only be driven to death. The current Wang family has long been like a 1,000-year-old tree that has fallen to the ground and withered, drained of nutrients by outsiders, and no longer possesses the ability to intimidate and call on the world. As the wife of the Wang family, she must never return to her mother's family and cause trouble for her. What can they expect from that group of robbers just by relying on a few female elites? But she forgot one thing, which is that her daughter is different from ordinary people. Lan Kai smiled mysteriously and said, "Did my mother forget who we are? My eldest senior sister is the first genius of Xuantian Sect and the youngest cultivator of the golden elixir to date. Moreover, my senior sister's golden elixir is different from those of Mozi Yuan. My senior sister's golden elixir is even more solid. After 9 rounds of thunder tribulations, it took her life to form it, and its power is extraordinary." Lan Kai patted her chest with a proud expression on her face. Although she had never seen her senior sister exert all her strength, her master once said that her strength was unfathomable among her peers and even within the same level of strength, and should not be underestimated. Tai Ching, the real person, has said so. Can there still be falsehoods? After Lan Kai's words, a glimmer of light gradually appeared in Mrs. Wang's beautiful eyes. Yes, how could she forget that her daughter, Tian Zong Chi Kai, had a fairy-like fate by her side? The day my daughter was born was extremely extraordinary. A rainbow bridge appeared out of thin air, and a divine bird dressed in colorful light appeared on the bridge. It circled for a long time before reluctantly leaving. Since then, everything that followed in the Wang family went very smoothly. The eldest daughter married into the clan and gained control of the discourse within the clan upon entering. The second son entered the military camp and never suffered serious injuries in battles of all sizes. The most crucial thing is that the immortal from Lingtai Mountain personally came forward to pick up Wang Xianshu and take her youngest daughter as her disciple. Immortal, why did she forget? Immortal's strength is unfathomable. Now that her daughter has such strength, what is she afraid of? Wang Xianshu. Junior sister is right, and besides, mother, we have a mission in this lower world. You can trust us, we will act carefully. It's night, the moon is bright and the stars are sparse. The lights were turned off everywhere, and when the mother fell asleep, a few people walked out through the back door. The three people who came were Wang Xianshu. Situ Nan rubbed his eyes and it was clear that he had not woken up yet. His eyes were drowsy, but when he heard two senior sisters say they wanted to take action, he didn't care about drowsiness and quickly put on his clothes to follow. Senior sister, do you suspect that the demon race demon will hide in the Mo mansion? Lon Kai-yi covered her face with a blue scarf and didn't forget to tie one for Situ Nan as well. Well, from the wet nurse's body, it can be seen that the stronghold of the demon clan is likely hidden in the Mo mansion, and the reason why Mo mansion can defeat the Wang family is due to their power. Wang Xianshu said. Upon reflection, Lon Kai-yi realized that with the power of mortals alone, it was impossible to overthrow a grand family that had stood firm for thousands of years in just a few short years. Lon Kai-yi asked, Senior sister, how do we get there? Donglin Prefecture is neither big nor small, let alone flying with a sword, it may startle the people of the demon clan. Use this. Wang Xianshu took out a talisman from the space as if using magic. With the 1,000-mile escaping form talisman, we can enter the Mo mansion silently. Senior sister Ming, let's start now. Those who dare to bully the senior sister, wait for them to be beaten. Lon Kai-yi rubbed her fists and palms. A burst of golden light flashed by, and the three people were nowhere to be seen in the inn. The shop assistant opened the window and glanced out, feeling confused. Strange, I think I heard someone talking, he said. 300 miles away from here, three figures suddenly appeared silently in the Mafu garden. A few people walked cautiously in the Mo mansion, while Situ Nan's eyes became surprised as he walked in a different direction. Fortunately, Lon Kai-yi caught him in time. Lon Kai-yi gestured with her hand, Senior sister, Xiaonan seems to know something. Let's split up and move on. Wang Xianshu hesitated for a moment before gesturing, then be careful and send a signal if there is anything. Wang Xianshu stood in place, watching their figures gradually sink into the darkness. Lon Kai-yi was not worried, although her strength was not strong enough, there were countless treasures given to her by the leader. If she really wanted to meet the people of the demon clan, she really didn't know who was unlucky. Then he turned around and headed in another direction. End of this chapter.